Have you ever felt like life is repeating the same patterns, no matter how hard you try to move forward? It is often said that karma always returns, but it isn't just a cycle of rewards and punishments. It is the ultimate law of alignment and accountability. Every thought we hold and every action we take creates a vibration that shapes our future. In this audiobook, we dive deep into the 12 laws of karma to help you move beyond coincidence and into a life of intentional living. By fostering deep reflection on your daily choices, you will learn how to take full ownership of your path, finding the resilience to break old habits and the balance needed to foster genuine growth. This is about more than just understanding a concept. It is about the manifestation of a new version of yourself and the connection you share with the world around you. Discover the essence of these universal laws and learn how to steer your life toward its highest purpose. Do you believe in the power of karma? If you believe that what you put out into the universe eventually finds its way back to you, please give this video a like and share this audiobook with someone who needs to hear this message today. Now let's start with Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The Law of Cause and Effect. Imagine, my friends, that the universe is not just a vast, cold expanse of stars, but a living, breathing textbook that responds to every move you make. It's an incredible realization when you first understand that karma always returns, but not as a distant judge or a mysterious stroke of luck. Instead, it is the fundamental fuel of our existence, the simple, unbreakable law of cause and effect. Think of it as the ultimate currency of your life. Every thought you harbor, every word you speak, and every action you take is a transaction that determines your future fate. We often joke about karma when we see someone stumble, as if it were a cosmic prank, but that's like laughing at gravity after a fall. In reality, this law has been our silent teacher since the dawn of time, like the first person who realized that touching fire leads to pain and chose a different path the next time. You see, friend, the universe doesn't just happen to you. It reacts to the vibration you send out into the world, creating an equal and opposite reaction to every single movement of your soul. To truly manifest the life you desire, you must first embrace the absolute accountability that comes with this law. It tells us that whatever we put into the universe is exactly what will come back to us, without exception. If you find yourself wondering why you lack love, peace, or financial abundance, look closely at the seeds you are planting today. You cannot expect a harvest of kindness if you are sowing seeds of resentment or judgment. This is the essence of alignment. To receive the things you want, you must first embody those very qualities within yourself. If you want honest relationships, you must offer radical authenticity. If you seek prosperity, you must practice a spirit of generosity. When you stop pointing fingers and realize that everything springs from within, you unlock a profound sense of peace and joy that no external circumstance can take away. This journey toward growth requires a deep, honest reflection on the patterns of your daily life. Take a moment to observe how the world around you often mirrors your deepest fears or your highest aspirations. It's fascinating to see how the most vehement critics often find themselves in the very positions they once judged, proving that our external reality is a direct projection of our internal state. But here is the beauty of it, my friends. Because the future is not set in stone, you have the power to course correct at any moment through your current decisions. You are the owner of your path, and your resilience in the face of past mistakes is what allows you to break old habits and build a new, more fulfilling life. Every small, good deed creates an opening for more goodness to flow toward you, reinforcing the connection between your present actions and your future self. as we navigate this experience together. Remember that maintaining a sense of balance is key to understanding the complexities of these universal laws. You aren't just a passive observer. You are an active participant in a grand cycle of cause and effect. By taking full ownership of your thoughts and behaviors, you stop being a victim of bad karma and start becoming a conscious creator of your own destiny. Your life is a continuous flow where the past, present, and future are all beautifully intertwined, and every choice you make right now is a brushstroke on the canvas of your tomorrow. So, let's walk this path with intention, knowing that as we change ourselves, the entire world begins to shift in response to our new, elevated state of being. Chapter 2. The Law of Creation. Life does not simply happen to you, my friends. It happens through you. And once you grasp the profound weight of that truth, you realize that you are not a mere spectator in a cosmic theater, but the lead architect of your own reality. Moving forward from the understanding that every action has a reaction, we must look at the canvas of our lives and realize that it remains blank until we choose to pick up the brush, because the universe is not waiting to hand you a finished masterpiece. It is waiting for your participation. This brings us into the heart of the law of creation, which tells us that life requires our active involvement to take shape, meaning that nothing manifests out of thin air without the spark of your internal energy meeting the external world. You see, friends, we are deeply interconnected with the universe both inwardly and outwardly, and our surroundings are often just a physical reflection of the state of our souls, which is why if you feel stuck or stagnant, you must look at what you are providing to the life force around you. You cannot just sit in a room and wait for your purpose to knock on the door. You must be the one to open the door, step outside, and begin weaving your intentions into the fabric of the day. The essence of this law lies in the understanding that your inner world and your outer world are two sides of the same coin. And to find balance in your physical life, you must first find alignment in your thoughts and desires. Surround yourself with what you want to become, my friends, because the people, the environments, and the ideas you choose to engage with are the raw materials of your future. If you desire a life of peace but surround yourself with chaos and noise, you are working against the very law that is trying to help you grow. You are the creator of your own experience, and this means taking full accountability for the energy you allow into your sacred space, ensuring that every connection you foster is one that serves your highest good. Think of yourself as a magnet. You are constantly pulling in experiences that match your internal vibration. And if you want to change what you are attracting, you must first change the frequency of your own heart. This isn't just about wishing for things to change. It's about the resilience to stay true to your vision even when the world seems slow to respond. Because creation is a process that requires patience and steady growth. When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, what am I contributing to the world today? And does my current environment reflect the person I am becoming? By practicing deep reflection and constant introspection, you begin to see the subtle ways you have been accidentally creating things you don't want through lack of focus or negative self-talk. Breaking these habits is the first step toward intentional living, where every breath is a conscious choice and every move is a step toward your manifestation. You have the power to self-correct at any moment, to shift your gaze from what is lacking to what can be built, and to recognize that the universe is a mirror reflecting back the level of effort and love you put into it. As you begin to take ownership of this creative power, friends, you will notice that this stuck feeling begins to dissolve, replaced by a sense of movement and possibility that feels almost cinematic in its depth. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a powerhouse of potential, And the law of creation is the tool that allows you to sculpt that potential into a tangible, beautiful life. It requires you to be present, to be mindful, and to be brave enough to claim the life that belongs to you. By understanding that you are one with the universe, you realize that the Creator and the creation are not separate, and this realization is the key to unlocking a higher purpose that transcends the ordinary. Every moment is an opportunity to start fresh, to plant a new seed, and to watch as the world transforms around you simply because you decided to be the change you wanted to see. This flow of energy doesn't stop at your own doorstep, because as you refine your internal reality, you naturally begin to influence the external world in ways you never thought possible. Your relationships improve because you are no longer seeking completion from others, but rather sharing the fullness of your own creation. Your career begins to align with your passions because you are no longer working for a paycheck, but working to express your soul's unique vibration. This is the beauty of taking the lead in your own story. Everything begins to fall into place not because of luck, but because you have mastered the art of being an active participant in the divine dance of life. Stay focused, stay intentional, and remember that the world is waiting for your unique contribution to make the tapestry of existence complete. Chapter 3: The Law of Humility. Acceptance is the fertile soil where the seeds of transformation finally begin to take root, because you cannot change a reality that you refuse to acknowledge, my friends. If you want to move beyond the limitations of your current life, you must first have the courage to look at exactly where you are standing without judgment or denial. This brings us to a profound turning point in our journey, the law of humility, which teaches us that what you resist will only persist, and what you refuse to accept will continue to follow you like a shadow until you turn around and face it with an open heart. We often spend so much energy fighting against our circumstances, complaining about our bad luck, or blaming others for our stagnation. But this resistance is the very thing that keeps us tethered to the past. True growth doesn't start with a battle against the world. It starts with the quiet, humble realization that your current situation is simply the sum of your previous choices and internal states. By accepting this without shame, you strip away the power that your obstacles have over you, and you finally gain the clarity needed to navigate toward a different horizon. Think of it this way, friends. If you are lost in a forest but refuse to admit you don't know the way, you will never look at a map or ask for guidance. You will simply keep walking in circles, exhausted by your own ego. The law of humility is that map, asking you to stop, breathe, and admit that perhaps the way you have been seeing things is no longer serving your highest good. Many people feel stuck because they are too proud to see their own flaws or too fearful to admit they have made mistakes. Yet it is in that very admission that your true resilience is born. To manifest a new reality, you must be willing to let go of the old version of yourself that is desperately clinging to being right or superior. When you look at someone else and only see their faults, you are often just reflecting a part of yourself that you have yet to accept. Therefore, practicing humility allows you to dissolve these barriers of judgment and find a deeper connection with the humanity in everyone you meet. This process of reflection requires you to drop the masks you wear for the world and stand in your own truth, recognizing that every challenge is an opportunity for self-correction rather than a reason for self-pity. When you approach life with a humble spirit, you stop viewing the universe as an enemy to be conquered and start seeing it as a partner in your evolution. You realize that you don't have to have all the answers right now, and that there is a certain essence of peace that comes from saying, "I am a work in progress." This shift in perspective changes your internal vibration from one of defensive tension to one of receptive grace, allowing the lessons of the universe to flow into your life without the friction of your resistance. It is about finding the balance between knowing your worth and acknowledging that there is always more to learn, always a higher level of alignment to reach. As you sit with this realization, my friends, notice how the weight on your shoulders begins to lighten when you stop trying to control how everyone perceives you and instead focus on how you perceive yourself. Taking ownership of your path means acknowledging that you are the common denominator in all your experiences. And while that may feel heavy at first, it is actually the ultimate form of empowerment. If you are the one who created the pattern through your past perceptions, you are the only one who can break it through your present acceptance. This is not about being weak or submissive. It is about the quiet strength of a soul that is no longer afraid of the truth. By embracing the law of humility, you are effectively clearing the clutter from your internal landscape, making room for the profound accountability that will lead you toward your highest purpose and a life of genuine fulfillment. Every interaction you have becomes a mirror, and when you look into that mirror with humility, you no longer see enemies or obstacles, but teachers and milestones on your path to enlightenment. You begin to understand that being stuck was never a permanent state, but merely a signal that you were ignoring a part of your own reality that needed your love and attention. As this acceptance settles into your bones, you will find that your external world starts to soften in response to your internal yielding. The career path that seemed blocked may suddenly show a new opening, or a strained relationship might begin to heal, simply because you stopped pushing and started perceiving. This is the magic of the humble heart. It doesn't need to shout to be heard, and it doesn't need to win to be successful. It simply needs to be present, honest, and ready for the next step of the journey. Stay in this space of openness, friends, for it is here that the most beautiful transformations are quietly waiting to begin. Chapter 4. The Law of Growth. When you finally decide to stop fighting the world and start accepting your place within it, a quiet but powerful shift begins to take place in the very fabric of your soul, because you realize that the only thing you truly have the power to change is yourself. This is the moment where the path clears and the law of growth takes the lead, whispered by the universe as a reminder that wherever you go, there you are, and therefore the quality of your journey is entirely dependent on the evolution of your internal spirit. We often spend our lives waiting for the perfect job, the perfect partner, or the perfect city to finally make us happy, acting as if our joy is a destination we haven't reached yet. But the truth is that if you do not grow on the inside, no change on the outside will ever be enough to fill that void. You see, friends, the law of growth is the ultimate declaration of personal sovereignty. It tells us that when we change who we are in our hearts, our lives follow suit with a natural, effortless grace that no amount of external maneuvering could ever achieve. Imagine for a moment that you are a gardener, but instead of trying to change the weather or the soil of the neighbor's yard, you turn all your attention to the unique seed that is your own consciousness. For us to grow, our spirit must transcend our circumstances, which means that even if the world around us remains stagnant or challenging, we have the capacity to bloom through the cracks of our environment. This is the essence of true manifestation, where you stop being a victim of your surroundings and start becoming the master of your internal climate. Friends, when you commit to this internal evolution, you are essentially telling the universe that you are ready for a higher vibration, and in response, the universe begins to rearrange itself to match your new state of being. You don't need to change the people around you to find peace. You simply need to grow your own capacity for peace, and you will find that those who no longer match your energy will naturally drift away, while those who do will be drawn to you like a moth to a flame. This expansion of the self requires a relentless accountability for your own thoughts and reactions, because every time you choose to react with love instead of anger, or patience instead of frustration, you are adding a new ring of growth to the tree of your life. It is easy to be kind when things are going well, but real spiritual resilience is forged in the moments when you are tested and you still choose to remain in alignment with your highest values. This is where the magic happens, friends, in the small, quiet victories over your own ego, where you decide that your internal peace is more important than being right or getting the last word. By focusing entirely on your own self-improvement, you create a ripple effect that touches everyone you encounter, proving that the most selfless thing you can do for the world is to work tirelessly on your own soul. As you dive deeper into this process of reflection, you will notice that the stuck feeling we so often dread is actually just a signal that you have outgrown your current way of thinking and are being called to expand. It is like a shell that has become too tight. The discomfort is not a sign of failure, but a sign of impending breakthrough. To move forward, you must be willing to shed the old skins of habit, fear, and limited belief that served you in the past, but are now restricting your future. This is the core of intentional living, where you consciously choose to feed your growth with positive affirmations, mindful presence, and the courage to face your own shadows. You are not a static object. You are a dynamic, flowing process, and the law of growth is the wind beneath your wings, urging you to reach for a version of yourself that you haven't even met yet. Think about the people in your life, friends, and how often we try to fix them or change their behavior so that we can feel better. The law of growth gently reminds us that this is a misuse of our sacred energy. When we focus on changing others, we are actually stagnating our own progress because we are looking outward instead of inward. But when you shift that focus back to yourself, a beautiful connection begins to form between your effort and your results. You begin to see that as you become more patient, the world seems less irritating. As you become more loving, the world seems more kind. This is the internal to external reality shift that changes everything. You aren't just improving your life outcomes. You are identifying the very life patterns that kept you trapped and systematically replacing them with a new, empowered architecture of the mind. This journey of self-correction is not a sprint, but a continuous, beautiful unfolding that requires you to stay in balance with your own pace. Do not judge yourself for how long it takes to unlearn a lifetime of conditioning. Instead, celebrate the fact that you are now aware enough to even try. Every moment of present moment awareness is a victory for your growth, a chance to choose a different path than the one you took yesterday. You are building a bridge to a higher purpose, and every brick of that bridge is a moment where you took ownership of your internal state. This is how you overcome bad karma, not by dwelling on the past, but by growing so tall in the present that the shadows of yesterday can no longer reach you. As this internal expansion continues, you will find that your career, your relationships, and your physical health begin to mirror the new, vibrant vibration you are carrying. It's a fascinating phenomenon to witness. As you stop demanding that the world change for you, the world starts changing because of you. You become a beacon of light for others, not by preaching at them, but by simply being a living example of what is possible when a human being commits to their own evolution. This is the ultimate objective of our time together, to reach a state of enlightenment where you realize that you are the creator, the gardener, and the garden all at once. So, my friends, let us breathe into this space of limitless potential, knowing that the only ceiling on your life is the one you place on your own internal growth. Let go of the need to control the uncontrollable and embrace the magnificent power of changing the one thing you actually can. As you move through your day, keep this thought close to your heart. As I grow within, my world glows without. There is no force in the universe that can stop a soul that is determined to evolve. And as you embrace this law, you will find that the path ahead is not just a road, but a spectacular rising into the very best version of yourself. Stay curious, stay humble, and above all, stay committed to the beautiful work of becoming who you were always meant to be. Chapter 5. The Law of Responsibility. If the world you see outside feels like a chaotic storm or a locked door, my friends, remember that you are the one holding the key to every room you enter, because the mirror of your life never lies, and it never reflects anything that wasn't first held within your own hands. As we move from the expansive energy of growth, we must settle into the grounding, unshakable foundation of the law of responsibility, which acts as the ultimate reality check for the soul by declaring that whatever happens in your life is a direct result of what is happening inside of you. It is so easy, and often so comforting, to look at our struggles and point toward our upbringing, our bosses, the economy, or even the alignment of the stars as the reasons for our unhappiness. But this externalization of power is actually the very thing that keeps us imprisoned. Friends, the moment you stop saying, "This happened to me," and start asking, "How did I contribute to this?" you aren't just taking the blame. You are taking back your power, because if you are the cause of your current situation, then you are also the only one with the authority to change it. This level of accountability is the most empowering tool in your spiritual arsenal, and it requires a radical shift in how you perceive your role in the universe. Imagine that your life is a high-definition mirror. If the image looking back at you is one of frustration, lack, or discord, it is simply because those are the frequencies you are projecting into the world. The law of responsibility tells us that we must take ownership of our state of mind, our reactions, and the energy we bring into every room. Because the universe is not punishing us, it is simply matching us. When you realize that you are the common denominator in all your failed relationships or your stagnant career moves, you finally stop waiting for someone else to come and save you. You become your own hero, my friends, recognizing that your internal vibration is the architect of your external reality, and that by cleaning the lens of your own perception, the entire view of the world begins to transform before your very eyes. To truly manifest the life of your dreams, you must accept that your current circumstances are a physical manifestation of your past thoughts and actions, but this realization should never be met with guilt, only with a deep, peaceful reflection. Think of your responsibility as a form of sacred alignment. When your internal values and your external actions are in harmony, the friction of life begins to dissolve. If you want a life of abundance, but you are constantly focusing on what is missing, you are being irresponsible with your creative energy. Friends, taking responsibility means being a vigilant guardian of your own focus, ensuring that you are planting seeds of success rather than weeds of doubt. This is the essence of resilience, where you stand tall in the face of a challenge and say, "I am responsible for how I handle this," effectively turning every obstacle into a stepping stone for your own growth. As you walk this path of introspection, you will begin to notice how much energy you used to waste on complaining or seeking validation from others. And as you pull that energy back into yourself, you find a new sense of balance that is unshakable by the outside world. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being conscious and having the courage for self-correction when you realize you've drifted off course. Every time you catch yourself blaming a friend or a coworker for your bad mood, you have an opportunity to reclaim your sovereignty by acknowledging that your mood is your responsibility alone. This shift creates a profound connection between you and the divine flow of the universe, because you are finally playing by the rules of the game, admitting that you are the captain of your ship and the master of your fate. Friends, this journey into the law of responsibility is what separates those who wish for change from those who actually embody it. When you stop being a passenger in your own life and move into the driver's seat, the road ahead suddenly looks much clearer and the destination seems much closer. You begin to identify the subtle behavioral patterns that have kept you stuck, perhaps a habit of procrastination or a tendency to play small, and you replace them with a commitment to intentional living. This is where your higher purpose begins to reveal itself, not as a distant goal, but as a way of being in the here and now. You are no longer waiting for the world to give you permission to be happy. You are giving yourself that permission through the quality of your daily choices and the integrity of your soul. By choosing to be responsible for your energy, you are also choosing to be a lighthouse for others, showing them that it is possible to remain centered and empowered regardless of what the storm looks like outside. Your career begins to flourish because you work with a sense of pride and ownership. Your relationships deepen because you no longer expect others to complete you. This is the ultimate objective of understanding the laws of karma, to reach a point of enlightenment where you see that the bad karma was never a curse, but a feedback loop designed to lead you back to your own power. So, my friends, let us breathe into this newfound authority, standing firm in the truth that we are the creators of our own experience, and that by taking responsibility for the inner, we are finally set free to enjoy the outer. Keep your heart open, your mind sharp, and your spirit ready to lead the way into the magnificent life that is waiting for your command. Chapter 6. The Law of Connection. The moment you truly accept that you are the architect of your own reality, a golden thread begins to reveal itself, weaving through every second of your existence and binding your past, your present, and your future into one inseparable tapestry. This brings us to the profound realization of the law of connection, a universal truth that whispers to us that nothing in this life is a standalone event, and no action, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is ever wasted or lost in the void. My friends, we often fall into the trap of thinking that our big breaks or our major failures are the only things that define us. Yet the universe operates on a much more intricate level of alignment, where the first step you take is just as vital as the last step that crosses the finish line. If you are feeling stuck today, it may be because you have forgotten that the mundane tasks, the quiet thoughts, and the tiny gestures of kindness are all building blocks for the grand manifestation of your destiny, and that to reach the mountain peak, you must honor every inch of the climb. Imagine, friends, that your life is like a long-form cinematic masterpiece where every scene, even the ones without dialogue or high drama, is essential to the final resolution of the story. The law of connection teaches us that the past, the present, and the future are all playing out in a continuous loop of energy, and that your current self is the bridge between who you were and who you are destined to become. When you wake up and choose to lead with a high vibration of gratitude, you aren't just improving your morning. You are actually sending a signal forward in time to meet the opportunities that are waiting for you tomorrow. There is a deep spiritual essence in understanding that even the failures of your past were necessary connections to the wisdom you hold today. And by practicing constant reflection, you can begin to see how the dots of your life are all being joined by a divine hand. You see, friends, the universe doesn't distinguish between a small task and a big one. It only sees the intention and the accountability you bring to the present moment. This realization demands a level of present moment awareness that turns every ordinary act into a sacred ritual, because if every step is connected, then how you do anything is truly how you do everything. If you treat your current, perhaps unfulfilling, job with a lack of care, you are essentially telling the universe that you aren't ready for the responsibility of your dream career, because the energy of not enough is what you are currently manifesting into the chain of events. My friends, you must find the resilience to give your best to the now, knowing that this effort is the very thing that triggers the next link in the chain to pull you forward. It is a beautiful and humbling thought to realize that the person you will be 10 years from now is relying on the choices you make in the next 10 minutes, and that by taking full ownership of your current vibration, you are literally sculpting the future version of yourself. As we sit with this idea of interconnectedness, let's look at the people and environments we interact with daily, recognizing that every connection is a mirror reflecting back a part of our own internal state. You don't meet anyone by accident, and you don't find yourself in any situation by chance. Every encounter is a milestone designed to teach you something about your own growth or to help you identify behavioral patterns that no longer serve you. Friends, when you begin to see the world through the lens of the law of connection, you stop feeling like a victim of random circumstances and start feeling like an active participant in a grand, purposeful design. This shift in perspective provides a sense of balance and peace, because you realize that even if you can't see the whole map yet, every turn you take is leading you exactly where you need to be for your higher purpose to unfold. This journey of introspection allows you to identify the life patterns that have kept you in a cycle of bad karma, and it empowers you to practice self-correction by simply changing the energy of the current link in the chain. You don't have to fix your whole life today. You just have to fix the moment you are currently inhabiting, because that moment is the only one that has the power to influence the moments that follow. Think of it as a ripple in a pond. A single pebble of intentional living dropped into the water of your day will eventually reach the farthest shores of your future. By maintaining this mindfulness, you ensure that the chain remains strong and that your life outcomes move toward a state of enlightenment and positive change. Friends, as you move through the world today, I want you to look at your surroundings and your tasks not as obstacles, but as vital connections in the masterwork of your life. Whether you are washing dishes, answering emails, or speaking to a stranger, do it with the awareness that you are weaving your future. The law of connection is your assurance that no effort is in vain, and that the universe is always keeping track of the love and integrity you pour into the world. Stay committed to this path of alignment, knowing that as you honor the small things, the big things will naturally fall into place with a spectacular, cosmic precision. You are never alone. You are never disconnected, and you are always exactly one step away from the next beautiful evolution of your soul. Keep stepping forward with faith, my friends, for the road is being built beneath your feet with every heartbeat. Chapter 7. The Law of Focus. When you begin to see that every step is a sacred thread in the grand tapestry of your life, you naturally start to realize that where you point your internal compass determines exactly which territory you will conquer next, my friends. This brings us to a moment of profound internal stillness known as the law of focus, a universal principle that acts as the guardian of your mental energy and the ultimate filter for your soul's progression. We live in a world that is constantly screaming for our attention, pulling us in 1,000 different directions and scattering our power like leaves in a gale. But the truth is that you cannot climb 2 ladders at once. And you certainly cannot manifest a life of higher purpose if your mind is divided between the shadows of the past and the anxieties of the future. Friends, the law of focus tells us that when we fix our gaze on spiritual values and higher aspirations, it becomes impossible for lower energies like greed, anger, or insecurity to take root in our hearts, because the light of a singular, pure intention leaves no room for the darkness of distraction. Imagine your mind as a powerful magnifying glass, and your attention as the sunlight passing through it. When that light is scattered, it provides a gentle warmth, but when it is brought into a sharp, singular point, it has the power to ignite a fire that can transform your entire reality. To truly manifest the version of yourself that is capable of achieving great things, you must practice a relentless accountability over where you allow your thoughts to linger. If you are constantly focusing on what you lack or judging the progress of others, you are essentially diluting your own vibration and slowing down the very growth you claim to desire. My friends, you must have the resilience to turn away from the noise of the world and choose to focus on the essence of who you want to become, understanding that your mental space is the most valuable real estate you own, and you must protect it with a sense of sacred duty. This level of present moment awareness is not about ignoring the world, but about choosing which parts of the world you give permission to influence your internal state. When you are focused on a task, or a conversation, or a dream, give it the entirety of your soul, because it is in that total immersion that the law of connection we spoke of earlier truly begins to work in your favor. If you find yourself feeling stuck, it is often because your focus is fragmented, leaving you with just enough energy to survive, but not enough to soar. Friends, by narrowing your focus to one thing at a time, you create a sense of balance and calm that allows the universe to provide you with the specific resources and insights you need for that exact moment. It is a form of deep introspection where you ask yourself, is what I am focusing on right now in alignment with the life I am trying to build? As you move through this journey, you will notice that as your focus sharpens, your behavioral patterns begin to undergo a natural self-correction, because a mind that is fixed on a higher goal simply has no interest in the trivial dramas or the destructive habits that once held it captive. You stop looking for shortcuts and start valuing the integrity of the process, recognizing that taking full ownership of your attention is the highest form of self-respect. My friends, think of the peace that comes when you stop trying to solve every problem at once and instead focus on the one small step that is right in front of you. This is the secret to overcoming bad karma. You don't fight the darkness. You simply focus so intently on the light that the darkness eventually loses its relevance and fades away. By staying centered in this law of focus, you begin to identify the life patterns that have historically led you astray, and you replace them with a commitment to intentional living that feels both effortless and powerful. Your relationships begin to improve because you are truly present with people, giving them the gift of your undivided attention, and your career begins to flourish because your work takes on a quality of excellence that only comes from a singular, focused mind. This is the path to true enlightenment, where you realize that the world outside is a wild and untamable ocean, but your focus is the rudder that allows you to navigate the waves with grace and purpose. So, my friends, as you step out into the world today, I encourage you to be a guardian of your gaze. Notice when your mind starts to drift into comparison or complaint, and gently, firmly pull it back to the present moment and the higher values you hold dear. Remember that you are a creator, and a creator must be focused to bring a masterpiece to life. Let your focus be your prayer, your dedication, and your direct line to the divine flow of the universe. When you choose to see the good, the purposeful, and the possible, you will find that those are the only things that continue to grow in the garden of your life. Stay steady, stay focused, and watch as the path ahead lights up simply because you refuse to look away from your own magnificent potential. Chapter 8. The Law of Giving and Hospitality. What you focus on with such singular intensity eventually overflows from the cup of your own soul and must be shared with the world, my friends, because the universe is not a stagnant pond, but a flowing river that requires you to give in order to keep receiving. This brings us naturally into the heart of a beautiful, selfless vibration known as the law of giving and hospitality, a principle that challenges us to put our spiritual money where our mouth is by proving that our internal beliefs are mirrored by our external actions. It is one thing to sit in quiet meditation and claim to be a person of peace, love, and abundance. But the true test of your alignment comes when the world asks you to demonstrate those virtues through your deeds. Friends, the law of giving tells us that there will come a moment in your life when you must show that you have truly learned a lesson by offering that same grace, resources, or kindness to another, confirming that your growth is not just a concept in your head, but a living, breathing reality in your heart. Imagine, my friends, that the universe is a grand host at a never-ending banquet, and you have been invited to sit at the table of life. But the secret to staying at that table is realizing that you are also a host yourself. When you practice hospitality and giving, you are essentially telling the universe that you trust in the infinite supply of the cosmos, which shifts your internal vibration from one of not enough to one of more than enough. To manifest a life of true richness, you must be willing to release what you have, whether it is your time, your wisdom, or your material wealth, because a closed fist can neither give nor receive. This is the essence of accountability in the spiritual realm. You are responsible for keeping the energy of the world moving, and when you hold on to things out of fear or greed, you create a blockage in your own flow. Friends, every time you give without expecting anything in return, you are practicing a form of high-level resilience against the ego's desire to hoard, and you are strengthening your connection to the collective humanity that surrounds you. This transition from focus to action requires a deep reflection on your true intentions, because the law of giving is less about the what and entirely about the why. If you give because you feel obligated or because you want to be seen as a good person, the universe feels that friction and the karmic reward is diluted. However, when you give because you recognize that the person in front of you is simply another version of yourself, you are practicing the ultimate form of present moment awareness. My friends, think of those times when you were feeling stuck and someone reached out with a word of encouragement or a helping hand. In that moment, they were fulfilling the law of giving for you. Now, the cycle of self-correction asks you to identify the patterns where you might have been selfish or indifferent and replace them with a spirit of radical hospitality. By welcoming others into your life, into your home, into your heart, and into your success, you are taking full ownership of your role as a co-creator of a kinder reality. As you walk this path, you will notice that the more you provide value to others, the more your own life outcomes begin to shift in a positive direction, almost as if by magic. This is not a coincidence, friends, but the perfect balance of the scales. The universe honors those who honor life. Your relationships will deepen and become more authentic because they are built on a foundation of mutual support rather than transactional gain. And your career will find new heights because you have become a person who focuses on how much they can contribute rather than how much they can take. This is how you overcome bad karma, by flooding your life with so much generosity and service that the old shadows of lack are completely washed away. You aren't just identifying life patterns. You are actively rewriting them with the ink of kindness. Friends, as you move through your day to day, look for the small hospitality moments that often go unnoticed. The chance to listen to a friend who is hurting, the opportunity to share a meal with someone in need, or the simple act of giving someone your full, focused attention. Remember that the law of giving doesn't always require a checkbook. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can give is your presence and your belief in someone else's potential. By living this law, you reach a state of enlightenment where you realize that there is no me and them, but only a singular, interconnected flow of energy. Your higher purpose is not something you find in isolation. It is something that reveals itself through your interactions with the world. So, let us move forward with open hearts and open hands, knowing that every seed of kindness we plant today is a harvest we will enjoy tomorrow. The universe is watching not just what you think, but how you treat its guests. And when you become a vessel for giving, you become a magnet for the very best life has to offer. Stay focused on your alignment. Stay committed to your growth. And above all, keep the energy of love moving. You are a vital part of this grand design, and your willingness to give is the very thing that makes the journey beautiful for everyone involved. Step out into the world today as a beacon of hospitality and watch how the world opens its doors to you in return. Chapter 9. The Law of Here and Now. The open hand that gives is the same hand that remains open to receive the pulse of the universe. But there is a secret to this flow, my friends, a secret that many of us miss as we hurry toward a future that hasn't arrived or linger in a past that has already dissolved into the mist. This secret is the law of here and now, a sacred invitation to pull your scattered energy back from the horizons of what if and if only, and to anchor your entire being into the absolute reality of this very breath. We often spend our lives as travelers who are so obsessed with the destination that we never actually see the road beneath our feet, forgetting that the only place where your vibration can actually shift, the only place where manifestation can truly take root, is in the narrow, brilliant doorway of the present moment. Friends, the law of here and now tells us that looking backward with regret or forward with anxiety is a form of spiritual leak, a way of draining the power you need to create your life right now. And until you learn to be fully present, you will always be a stranger to your own potential. Imagine your life is a cinematic film, and while you are so busy worrying about the final scene or analyzing the mistakes of the first act, you are completely missing the scene that is currently being shot, the only scene where you have the power to change the script. To truly embody accountability, you must realize that you cannot be responsible for a moment that isn't here, yet you are entirely responsible for the quality of your presence in this one. My friends, when you dwell on old behaviors or past failures, you are essentially dragging the heavy chains of yesterday into today, which makes it impossible to achieve the balance and alignment necessary for your higher purpose to reveal itself. This law is a call to wake up from the daydream of the mind and enter the vivid reality of the senses, recognizing that the essence of your soul is not found in your history or your ambitions, but in the quiet space between your thoughts right now. This grounding in the now requires a fierce resilience, because the modern world is designed to keep you in a state of constant distraction, pulling your focus toward the next notification, the next deadline, or the next social comparison. But friends, every time you catch your mind wandering into the stuck patterns of the past, and you gently pull it back to your current task, whether you are walking, eating, or listening to these words, you are performing an act of profound self-correction. You are teaching your spirit that it is safe to be here, and in that safety, your growth begins to accelerate because you are no longer fighting the ghosts of your history. This is the ultimate form of introspection, where you observe your thoughts not as who you are, but as clouds passing through the vast sky of your current awareness, allowing you to identify life patterns with a clarity that only comes when you stop being a part of the drama and start being the witness of it. When you take full ownership of the present, you begin to see that your external reality is not a fixed cage, but a fluid reflection of your current vibration. If you want to change your life outcomes, you don't do it by wrestling with the future. You do it by infusing this moment with the energy of the life you desire. If you seek love, be the most loving version of yourself to the person standing right in front of you. If you seek prosperity, find the absolute richness in the air you are breathing and the ground you are standing on. My friends, this is how we overcome bad karma, by refusing to let the echoes of past mistakes dictate the frequency of our current heartbeats. By maintaining a deep connection to the here and now, you become a master of cause and effect, because you realize that the cause of your future is being created in the laboratory of this very second. As you move through this sensory experience, you will notice that your relationships and your career begin to take on a new depth, simply because you are finally there to experience them. Friends, how many times have we sat with a loved one while our minds were miles away, or worked on a project while our hearts were heavy with yesterday's stress? The law of here and now reminds us that when we give our undivided attention to the present, we are giving the greatest gift possible to ourselves and others. This is the path to enlightenment, not a distant peak to be conquered, but a continuous state of being awake to the miracle of existence. It is the realization that you are not your story. You are the one experiencing the story, and the experience is only happening in the now. Think of the stuck feeling as a signal that you are trying to live in a time zone that doesn't exist anymore. By shifting your focus back to your immediate surroundings, you dissolve the illusions of lack and fear that thrive in the shadows of the past and future. You become more practical, more effective, and more powerful because your energy is no longer divided. My friends, let us embrace the simplicity of this law, recognizing that while we can learn from the past and plan for the future, we can only live in the now. Every breath is a fresh start, a new opportunity for alignment, and a chance to plant a seed that is untainted by what came before. So, as we journey forward, let us do so with our eyes wide open to the beauty and the potential of this immediate moment. Notice the weight of your body, the sound of the world around you, and the incredible power you hold in your hands right now to choose a thought of peace, a word of kindness, or an action of integrity. The universe is not waiting for you to become perfect. It is waiting for you to become present. Stay in this space of present moment awareness, friends, for it is the only place where miracles are allowed to happen. Your life is not a series of distant events. It is a continuous, unfolding now. And when you master the art of being here, you master the art of living. Let the past be a library you visit, and the future be a horizon you respect. But let this moment be the home where your soul truly resides. Stay mindful, stay grounded, and keep your heart anchored in the glorious reality of the here and now. Chapter 10. The Law of Change. Something keeps repeating. The same emotions, the same disappointments, the same kinds of people, the same inner conversations, different faces, different places, yet somehow, the pattern feels hauntingly familiar, as if life itself is whispering to you, again and again. Are you ready to see this now? Friends, this is where the deeper essence of transformation begins. Because the truth is simple, yet powerful enough to reshape your entire reality. Life does not repeat itself to punish you. It repeats itself to teach you. And until the lesson is understood, until awareness replaces unconscious reaction, until you choose differently, the cycle continues, not because you are stuck, but because you are being guided. You see, the law of change is not about forcing transformation. It is about recognizing patterns, understanding their origin, and consciously choosing a new direction. And as you sit with that thought for a moment, you may begin to notice something within yourself, a quiet realization that perhaps the patterns you've been experiencing are not random at all. They are reflections, echoes of your internal reality, shaped by your past thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional habits, your unconscious responses. And this is where accountability becomes your greatest power. Because when you begin to see that your outer world is not separate from your inner state, everything changes suddenly. You are no longer a victim of repetition. You become the observer of it, the student of it, and eventually, the master of it. Friends, think about this gently. How many times have you found yourself in similar situations, wondering why things never seem to change, even when you try so hard? Maybe it's relationships that follow the same painful pattern. Maybe it's career paths that feel stuck in cycles. Maybe it's emotional reactions that seem automatic, like a script you didn't consciously write, yet keep performing. And here's the profound truth. Patterns persist not because life is against you, but because something within you is still aligned with that experience. Not consciously, but energetically. And this is where the law of change invites you into deeper introspection. It asks you not, why is this happening to me? But what is this trying to show me? Because every repeated experience carries a message, a mirror, a lesson waiting to be acknowledged. And the moment you shift from resistance to reflection, from blame to awareness, from reaction to conscious observation, you begin to break the invisible loop. Friends, this is where mindfulness becomes your doorway. Because without awareness, patterns operate automatically. They control your choices, your responses, your emotional state. But with awareness, something extraordinary happens. You create space. Space between stimulus and response. Space between emotion and action. Space where your true power lives. And in that space, you are no longer bound by your past. You are free to choose differently. You see, change does not begin with action alone. It begins with seeing clearly. Because you cannot transform what you are unwilling to acknowledge. And this is why many people feel stuck. Not because change is impossible, but because they are trying to change outcomes without understanding causes. Friends, the law of change is deeply connected to the essence of cause and effect. What you are experiencing today is not separate from what you have been thinking, believing, and doing. But here's the empowering part. What you choose today is not separate from what you will experience tomorrow. And that means everything can shift, but only when you do. And I want you to feel the weight and the freedom of that truth at the same time. Because it means you are responsible, yes, but you are also powerful. You are not trapped in your past patterns. You are simply continuing them unconsciously. And the moment consciousness enters, the pattern begins to dissolve. Friends, imagine your life as a series of energetic imprints. Each thought, each action, each emotional response creating a vibration, a pattern, a rhythm. Over time, these patterns become familiar, comfortable, even when they are painful, because the mind is wired to repeat what it knows. And so, without awareness, you recreate similar experiences again and again, not because you want to suffer, but because your system is following a known path. But growth, real growth, begins when you interrupt that pattern, not by force, but by awareness, not by denial, but by acceptance, not by running away, but by facing it with clarity. Friends, the law of change is not asking you to become someone else overnight. It is asking you to become more conscious of who you are being in each moment. Because transformation is not a sudden leap, it is a series of conscious choices, repeated consistently, aligned with your higher self. And yes, sometimes this process feels uncomfortable, because breaking a pattern means stepping into the unknown. It means choosing a different response when your old self wants to react. It means letting go of familiar pain to create unfamiliar peace. And that requires courage. But it also creates freedom. Because every time you choose differently, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. And slowly, gently, powerfully, your reality begins to shift. Friends, you might have heard the phrase, doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results. But let's go deeper than that. Because sometimes it's not just about actions, it's about the energy behind those actions. You can change what you do, But if your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional patterns remain the same, the outcome often returns in a different form. Because life responds not just to what you do, but to who you are being. And this is where internal alignment becomes essential. Because when your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are aligned with growth, awareness, and intention, change becomes inevitable. Friends, this is where the concept of self-correction enters your journey. Not as self-criticism, but as conscious refinement. You begin to notice your triggers, your reactions, your patterns, not to judge them, but to understand them. Because understanding dissolves resistance. And when resistance dissolves, transformation flows naturally. You stop asking, "Why does this keep happening?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me about myself?" And that question alone can change your life, because it shifts your focus from external blame to internal growth. And that is where real power lives. Friends, let's bring this into your daily life. Imagine you find yourself in a familiar conflict, one you've experienced before, maybe with a different person, but the same emotional outcome. This time, instead of reacting the same way, you pause. You observe. You become aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your impulses. And in that moment of awareness, you choose a different response. Maybe you choose patience instead of anger. Maybe you choose silence instead of argument. Maybe you choose understanding instead of judgment. And just like that, the pattern begins to break. Because the cycle can only continue if you continue it. And when you don't, it ends. Friends, this is how karma evolves. Not through punishment, but through awareness. Not through fate, but through conscious choice. And this is why the law of change is deeply empowering. Because it reminds you that no matter how long a pattern has existed, it is never permanent. It exists only as long as you remain unconscious of it. The moment you see it clearly, you are already changing it. And as this awareness deepens, something beautiful begins to happen within you. You stop fearing repetition because you understand it. You stop resisting patterns because you learn from them. You stop blaming circumstances because you recognize your role in shaping them. And in that space, growth becomes natural. Friends, the journey of change is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aware. Because awareness leads to better choices. Better choices lead to new experiences. And new experiences create a new reality. And slowly, your life begins to reflect your growth. Not through force, but through alignment. Not through struggle, but through understanding. And as you continue walking this path, you begin to feel something shift within you. A sense of clarity, a sense of control, a sense of peace. Because you realize you are no longer repeating your past unconsciously. You are creating your future consciously. And that is the true essence of manifestation. Not wishing for change, but becoming the change. Not waiting for a new reality, but aligning with it. Not escaping patterns, but transforming them. Friends, take a deep breath here and feel this truth settle within you. Every pattern you have experienced has brought you to this moment of awareness. Every repetition has been preparing you to see more clearly. And now, you have a choice. To continue unconsciously, or to evolve consciously. To repeat the past, or to create something new. And as you move forward from this moment, gently, intentionally, with mindfulness and presence, remember this. Change does not happen all at once. It happens in small, conscious decisions, in moments of awareness, in choices that align with your higher self. And with each of those moments, you are rewriting your story. You are reshaping your karma. You are stepping into a version of yourself that is more aligned, more aware, more empowered. And slowly, quietly, beautifully, your life begins to reflect that change. Chapter 11. The Law of Patience and Reward. Slow growth, silent progress, unseen transformation. This is where most people lose faith. And yet, friends, this is exactly where life is working the hardest for you. Because just as you began to understand how change reshapes your patterns, how awareness breaks repetition, you now step into a deeper truth, something quieter, something more subtle, something that tests not your intelligence, but your resilience, the law of patience and reward. And it flows naturally from where you stand now. Because once you begin changing your patterns, once you start choosing consciously, once you align your thoughts, actions, and intentions with growth, a new question quietly emerges within you. Why is it taking so long? Friends, this question has stopped more dreams than failure ever could. Because in a world that glorifies speed, instant results, quick manifestations, and overnight success, patience feels like stillness, like nothing is happening, like you are being left behind. But in truth, patience is not stillness, it is preparation. It is the invisible process where your inner world aligns with your outer reality. And this is where your understanding of karma deepens. Because karma is not just about action and reaction, it is about timing, alignment, and readiness. You see, every action you take creates a vibration, a ripple in the fabric of your life. And those ripples take time to return, to shape, to form into experiences. And just like a seed planted in the soil, your efforts, your intentions, your growth, they do not bloom instantly. They require nurturing. They require consistency. They require faith. Friends, imagine planting a seed today and expecting a tree tomorrow. It sounds unrealistic, almost foolish. And yet, this is exactly how most people treat their goals, their relationships, their personal growth. They act once, maybe twice, and when results don't appear immediately, they lose belief, they lose motivation, they step out of alignment. But the law of patience and reward reminds you of something powerful. The most valuable rewards are never immediate, because they are not just outcomes, they are transformations. They require you to become the person who can hold them. And that becoming takes time. And as you sit with this idea, you may begin to reflect on your own journey, the times when you worked hard, stayed consistent, tried to improve, yet felt like nothing was changing. And in those moments, it is easy to think, maybe this isn't working. But friends, what if everything was working, just not in the way you expected? Because growth is not always visible. Alignment is not always loud. Transformation is often silent. And the law of patience teaches you to trust that silence. It teaches you to keep going, even when results are not immediate, because every action you take is building something within you. And that internal growth eventually shapes your external reality. This is where accountability meets faith. Because patience is not about waiting passively. It is about staying committed actively. It is about continuing your efforts, continuing your alignment, continuing your growth, even when the reward is not yet visible. And this is where many people unknowingly break their own progress. They start strong, they take action, they align for a short period, but when results don't come quickly, they stop. And when they stop, the process resets. The energy disperses. The momentum fades. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Friends, consistency is the bridge between action and reward. And patience is the strength that keeps you walking on that bridge. Because every meaningful goal in life, whether it is personal growth, emotional healing, career success, or fulfilling relationships, requires sustained effort over time. It requires you to show up again and again, not just when you feel motivated, but even when you feel uncertain. And this is where resilience becomes your greatest companion. Because patience without resilience feels like struggle, but patience with resilience becomes power. It becomes a quiet confidence, a deep knowing that what you are doing matters, even if you cannot see the results yet. And as you begin to embody this understanding, something shifts within you. You stop chasing immediate results. You start valuing consistent effort. You stop measuring progress only by outcomes. You start recognizing growth within yourself. And this shift changes everything. Because now, your focus moves from "when will I get it?" to "who am I becoming through this process?" And that question aligns you with a higher level of awareness. Because the law of patience is not just about receiving rewards, it is about becoming worthy of them. And worthiness here does not mean judgment or comparison, it means readiness. It means being mentally, emotionally, and spiritually aligned with what you desire. Because if something arrives before you are ready for it, it does not stay. But when it arrives after you have grown into it, it becomes part of your life naturally. Friends, think about the times when you rushed something, a decision, a relationship, an opportunity, and it didn't work out the way you hoped. Now think about the times when you allowed things to unfold, when you stayed patient, when you trusted the process, how different the outcome felt. Because patience creates space for clarity. It creates space for alignment. It creates space for better choices. And this is where mindfulness plays a crucial role. Because when you are present, when you are aware, when you are grounded in the moment, you are less likely to rush, less likely to react impulsively, less likely to sabotage your own growth. You begin to understand that every moment of effort, every step forward, every small improvement, is contributing to something larger. And this understanding strengthens your commitment. Friends, the law of patience and reward also teaches you something profound about energy. Because every action you take carries an intention, a vibration, an essence. And that energy accumulates over time. It builds momentum. It creates a field of possibility. And eventually, it manifests as results. But if your actions are inconsistent, if your intentions are unclear, if your efforts are scattered, the energy remains fragmented. And fragmented energy creates delayed or unstable outcomes. This is why alignment is so important. Because when your thoughts, your actions, and your intentions are aligned consistently, the energy you create becomes focused, powerful, and effective. And over time, it produces results that are stable, meaningful, and lasting. Friends, this is also where the law of cause and effect connects beautifully with patience. Because every cause you create today may not show its effect immediately, but it is always moving, always shaping your future. And this requires trust. Not blind belief, but conscious trust. Trust based on understanding. Trust based on awareness. Trust based on the knowledge that life operates through universal principles, not random chance. And when you trust this process, patience no longer feels like waiting. It feels like participation. Participation in your own growth. Participation in your own transformation. Participation in the unfolding of your life. And this shift changes your emotional experience completely. Because instead of feeling frustrated, you feel engaged. Instead of feeling stuck, you feel in progress. Instead of feeling uncertain, you feel aligned. Friends, there is also a deeper layer to this law, the emotional reward of patience. Because while external rewards may take time, internal rewards begin immediately. The moment you commit to growth, you begin to feel a sense of purpose. The moment you stay consistent, you begin to feel a sense of discipline. The moment you remain patient, you begin to feel a sense of calm. And these internal shifts are just as valuable as external outcomes, because they shape who you are. And who you are determines what you attract. And what you attract determines the life you experience. So in many ways, the reward has already begun, even if you cannot see it yet. And as this realization deepens, You begin to approach life differently. You stop rushing outcomes. You start respecting timing. You stop forcing results. You start trusting processes. You stop comparing your journey with others. You start honoring your own path. And this creates balance, a sense of peace, a sense of alignment. Friends, patience is not about delaying your dreams. It is about preparing you for them. It is about ensuring that when your desires manifest, you are ready to receive them, sustain them, and grow with them. And this preparation is where your real growth happens. Because in this space, you develop resilience. You strengthen your mindset. You refine your actions. You deepen your awareness. And all of this becomes the foundation of your success. So when the reward finally arrives, it is not just a result. It is a reflection of your journey. It carries your effort, your consistency, your growth, your transformation. And that is why it feels so meaningful. Because you didn't just receive it, you became it. Friends, as you continue walking this path, remember this gently. Every step you take matters. Every effort you make counts. Every moment of patience strengthens you. Even when it feels slow. Even when it feels uncertain. Even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because something is always happening. Within you. Around you. Through you. And life is responding, quietly, steadily, faithfully. So stay aligned. Stay consistent. Stay patient. And trust that what you are building is not just a result. It is a life. A life shaped by awareness. A life guided by intention. A life grounded in growth, balance, and resilience. And as you breathe into that understanding, as you allow it to settle within your essence, you begin to feel a quiet confidence rising. That you are on your path. That you are in alignment. That you are becoming. And that is already a reward unfolding. Chapter 12. The Law of Significance and Inspiration. What if the smallest thing you do today carries more power than the biggest thing you keep postponing? What if your quiet effort, your unseen kindness, your simple act of showing up with intention is already shaping your destiny in ways you cannot yet see? Friends, as you stand in the awareness of patience, as you begin to trust that your consistent effort is never wasted, a deeper realization begins to unfold within you. That it is not just about doing more, it is about doing what matters, with presence, with heart, with meaning. And this is where the law of significance and inspiration gently enters your journey. Because after learning to change your patterns, after learning to stay patient with your growth, you now begin to understand something even more profound, that every action you take carries a weight, a vibration, an essence that extends far beyond the moment itself. Nothing you do is insignificant. Nothing you think is isolated. Nothing you feel is disconnected. Everything is part of a larger web of interconnectedness, where your energy touches lives, influences outcomes, and contributes to the collective experience of this world. And as you begin to see life through this lens, something shifts within you. Your perspective expands. You no longer measure your actions only by immediate results. You begin to feel their deeper impact. You begin to understand that even the smallest effort, when done with intention, creates a ripple that moves outward, touching people, situations, and opportunities in ways you may never fully witness. Friends, this is where your sense of purpose begins to awaken. Because significance is not found in grand gestures alone. It is found in the way you live your daily life, in the way you speak, in the way you think, in the way you treat others, in the way you show up for yourself. And inspiration, it flows naturally from that authenticity. Because when your actions are aligned with your values, when your energy is rooted in awareness, when your choices reflect growth and integrity, you become a source of inspiration, not by trying to impress, but by simply being real. And this understanding connects beautifully with everything you have explored so far. Because the law of cause and effect reminds you that every action creates a consequence. The law of change teaches you to shift your patterns consciously. The law of patience shows you that results take time. And now, the law of significance reveals that every step along that journey matters deeply. Friends, think about this quietly. How often do people underestimate their own impact? How often do you tell yourself that what you are doing is not enough, not big enough, not important enough? And in that belief, you disconnect from your own power. But the truth is, significance is not about scale, it is about intention. A small act done with presence carries more power than a large act done without awareness. Because intention shapes energy, and energy shapes outcomes, and outcomes shape reality. So when you begin to act with intention, even in the smallest moments, you begin to transform your life at its very foundation. Friends, imagine this in your everyday life. A conversation where you truly listen instead of waiting to respond. A moment where you choose kindness instead of judgment. A decision where you act with integrity instead of convenience. These may seem small, almost invisible, but they are not. They are powerful because they shift your vibration. They align you with growth. They strengthen your character. And over time, they create a life that reflects those qualities. And as you continue to live in this way, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to inspire others. Not because you are trying to teach them, not because you are trying to lead them, but because your energy becomes contagious. Your authenticity becomes visible. Your growth becomes noticeable. And people feel it. They may not always understand it. They may not always express it, but they are influenced by it. And this is the beauty of inspiration. It does not force. It does not demand. It simply exists and invites others to rise. Friends, this is where your responsibility expands beyond yourself. Because your actions are not just shaping your own life, they are contributing to the lives of others. And this is not meant to create pressure, but awareness. Because when you understand your impact, you begin to act more consciously. You begin to choose your words more carefully. You begin to align your actions more intentionally. You begin to live with a deeper sense of accountability. And this accountability is not heavy, it is empowering. Because it reminds you that you matter, that your presence matters, that your choices matter. And that realization alone can transform the way you live. Friends, the law of significance also teaches you something important about effort. Because in a world driven by outcomes, people often focus only on results, ignoring the value of effort itself. But effort, especially intentional effort, is never wasted. Even when it does not lead to immediate success, even when it is not recognized, even when it feels small, because every effort contributes to your growth. It strengthens your discipline. It sharpens your awareness. It aligns your energy. And all of this prepares you for future opportunities. So when you put your heart into what you do, when you show up fully, when you act with purpose, you are not just working towards a goal, you are building yourself. And that is always significant. Friends, let's take this even deeper. Because significance is not only about external actions, it is also about your internal world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional patterns. Because these shape your reality just as much as your actions do. And when you become aware of this, you begin to treat your inner world with the same level of care and intention. You begin to notice your thoughts. You begin to shift limiting beliefs. You begin to cultivate positive emotional patterns. And in doing so, you elevate your entire vibration. And that elevation naturally influences your external life. Your relationships improve. Your opportunities expand. Your experiences become more aligned. Not because of luck, but because of alignment. Friends, This is where manifestation becomes real, not as a magical concept, but as a natural outcome of aligned living. Because when your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are in harmony, you create a powerful field of energy that attracts experiences that match that frequency. And this is why inspiration matters. Because inspired actions carry a higher vibration. They are driven by purpose, by passion, by authenticity. And those qualities attract meaningful outcomes. So when you feel inspired, follow it. Trust it. Act on it. Because that inspiration is guiding you towards alignment, towards growth, towards your higher purpose. Friends, there is also something deeply humbling about this law, because it reminds you that you do not always see the full impact of your actions. A kind word you speak today may stay with someone for years. A moment of support you offer may change someone's path. A decision you make may open doors you never imagined. And yet, you may never know. And that is okay, because significance is not about recognition. It is about contribution. It is about living in a way that reflects your values, regardless of who is watching. And when you live like that, your life gains depth. It gains meaning. It gains purpose. Friends, this understanding also frees you from comparison. Because when you focus on significance, you stop measuring your life against others. You stop asking, am I doing enough compared to them? And you start asking, am I living in alignment with my truth? And that question is far more powerful because it brings you back to yourself, to your path, to your growth. And from that space, you begin to create a life that is authentic, fulfilling, and meaningful. And as this awareness settles within you, you begin to feel a quiet sense of confidence. Not loud, not forceful, but steady, grounded, real, because you know that what you are doing matters, even if it is small, even if it is slow, even if it is unseen. Friends, this is the essence of true impact. It is not about how many people notice you. It is about how deeply you touch the lives you encounter. It is not about how fast you succeed. It is about how consciously you grow. It is not about how big your actions are. It is about how aligned they are. And when you live with that awareness, you naturally elevate every area of your life. Your relationships become more meaningful. Your work becomes more purposeful. Your personal growth becomes more intentional. And your presence becomes more powerful. Not because you are trying to be significant, but because you are living with significance. And as you continue forward, carrying everything you have learned, from awareness to change, from patience to growth, from accountability to alignment, you begin to realize something beautiful. That your life is not just a series of events. It is a continuous expression of your inner world, a reflection of your choices, a manifestation of your energy, and every moment is an opportunity to shape it, to elevate it, to align it with your highest self. So as you move through your days, friends, remember this gently. You do not need to wait for a perfect moment to make an impact. You do not need a grand opportunity to create change. You do not need external validation to prove your worth. All you need is awareness, intention, presence, and the willingness to act from a place of truth. Because in that space, every action becomes meaningful. Every effort becomes valuable. Every moment becomes an opportunity for growth. And slowly, naturally, beautifully, you begin to inspire, not by force, not by effort alone, but by simply becoming a living example of alignment, resilience, and conscious creation. And as that realization settles quietly within you, you may begin to feel it, a sense of connection, a sense of purpose, a sense that your journey, your growth, your presence truly matters. Chapter 13. Changing Karma. You are not bound. You are not fixed. You are not condemned to repeat what has already been written, because in this very moment, friends, something powerful is waiting for you to realize. Karma is not a life sentence. It is a living process, and that means it can change. And as that understanding gently rises within you, it connects naturally with everything you have been feeling so far, the patience you have been practicing, the significance you have begun to see in your smallest actions, the awareness you are cultivating in your daily life. All of it has been preparing you for this deeper truth that you are not just experiencing karma, you are actively shaping it. Because if your past actions, thoughts, and emotions have created your present reality, then your present awareness, your present choices, your present alignment are already creating your future. And that means something extraordinary. It means you are not stuck, you are in motion. Friends, take a moment and feel that, not just understand it logically, but truly feel it within your essence. Because so many people walk through life believing that their past defines them, that their mistakes limit them, that their bad karma is something they must simply endure. But that belief is where the real limitation begins. Because karma is not about punishment. It is about learning. It is about growth. It is about awareness evolving through experience. And when you understand that, something shifts within you. You stop seeing your past as a burden, and you begin to see it as information. Information that shows you where you are unconscious. Information that reveals your patterns. Information that guides your transformation. And from that space, change becomes possible. Friends, this is where the law of change, the law of patience, and the law of significance all come together, not as separate ideas, but as one continuous flow of growth. Because to change your karma, you must first see your patterns clearly. You must recognize the habits, the reactions, the beliefs that have been shaping your experiences. And this requires honesty, not harsh judgment, but honest reflection. Because without awareness, there can be no transformation. And as you begin to observe yourself more deeply, you may notice certain patterns repeating, certain emotional triggers, certain behaviors, certain thoughts that arise automatically. And instead of resisting them, instead of pushing them away, you begin to ask, what is this showing me? Because every pattern carries a message, and that message is your opportunity for growth. Friends, changing karma does not mean erasing the past. It means responding differently in the present. It means interrupting the automatic cycle. It means choosing awareness over reaction. And this is where your true power lies. Because between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a space. And in that space, you have choice. And in that choice, you create new karma. So every time you respond with awareness instead of habit, you are changing your path. Every time you choose compassion instead of anger, you are shifting your vibration. Every time you act with integrity instead of impulse, you are rewriting your story. And these choices, they may seem small in the moment, but they are not. They are powerful because they change direction. And direction determines destination. Friends, think about how often people try to change their lives by focusing only on outcomes. They want better relationships, better careers, more peace, more success, but they often overlook the internal patterns that are creating their current reality. And this is why change feels difficult. Because they are trying to create a new life with the same mindset, the same habits, the same emotional responses. But real change begins within. It begins with your thoughts, your beliefs, your awareness. Because these are the roots from which your actions grow. And when you change the roots, the entire tree changes. Friends, this is where mindfulness becomes your most valuable tool. Because mindfulness allows you to see yourself clearly. It allows you to notice your thoughts without becoming them. It allows you to feel your emotions without being controlled by them. It creates that space where transformation becomes possible. And the more you practice this awareness, the more you begin to understand yourself. Not as a fixed identity, but as a dynamic, evolving being. And that understanding brings freedom. Because if you are not fixed, you can change. If you are not defined, you can redefine. If you are not bound, you can grow. Friends, there is also something deeply empowering about taking responsibility in this process. Because changing karma requires accountability. Not blame, but ownership. Ownership of your thoughts. Ownership of your actions. Ownership of your choices. And while that may feel heavy at first, it is actually liberating. Because when you take ownership, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for circumstances to change. You stop blaming others for your experiences. You stop feeling like a victim of your past. And instead, you become the creator of your future. And this shift changes everything. Because now, every moment becomes an opportunity. An opportunity to choose differently. An opportunity to act with awareness. An opportunity to align with your higher self. Friends, let's bring this into something real, something you can feel in your daily life. Imagine a situation where you would normally react with frustration. Maybe someone says something that triggers you. Maybe something doesn't go as planned. Maybe an old pattern begins to rise. In that moment, you pause. You breathe. You become aware. And instead of reacting automatically, you choose consciously. Maybe you choose patience. Maybe you choose understanding. Maybe you choose silence. And in that moment, something shifts. The pattern is interrupted. The cycle is broken. And new karma is created. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Because you are not just changing your actions, you are changing your identity. You are becoming someone who responds with awareness. Someone who lives with intention. Someone who creates consciously. And that identity shapes your reality. Friends, changing karma also involves letting go. Letting go of guilt. Letting go of regret. Letting go of the belief that you are defined by your past mistakes. Because holding on to those emotions keeps you connected to the old pattern. It keeps the energy alive. But when you release, when you forgive yourself, when you accept your past as part of your journey, you free yourself. And in that freedom, you create space for new experiences, new patterns, new possibilities. Because you cannot create a new reality while holding onto the energy of the old one. Friends, this is where self-compassion becomes essential. Because growth is not always easy. Transformation is not always comfortable. There will be moments when you fall back into old patterns. Moments when you feel frustrated. Moments when you question your progress. And in those moments, kindness towards yourself is crucial. Because change is a process, not a single decision, but a series of decisions. And every time you choose awareness, even after a mistake, you are moving forward. You are evolving. You are growing. Friends, the beauty of karma is that it is always responsive. It is always adapting. It is always reflecting your current state. And that means it is never too late to change. No matter how long a pattern has existed. No matter how deeply it feels rooted. No matter how many times it has repeated. The moment you become aware, the moment you choose differently, the moment you align with growth, karma begins to shift. And as you continue walking this path, something beautiful begins to unfold within you. You start to feel lighter, more in control, more aligned. Because you are no longer reacting unconsciously. You are living consciously. You are creating intentionally. And that creates a sense of peace, a sense of clarity, a sense of purpose. Friends, take a breath here and feel this deeply. You are not your past. You are not your patterns. You are not your mistakes. You are the awareness that can change them. You are the consciousness that can transform them. You are the presence that can rise above them. And in that realization, there is power. A quiet, steady, undeniable power. The power to create a new path. The power to align with your highest self. The power to manifest a life that reflects your growth, your values, your essence. And as you carry this understanding forward, gently, intentionally, with mindfulness and reflection, you begin to see your life differently. Not as something that happens to you, but as something you are actively shaping, moment by moment, choice by choice, thought by thought, and slowly, naturally, beautifully, your karma begins to change. And with it, your life begins to transform. And now, something within you feels different, doesn't it? Not louder, not dramatic, not overwhelming, but quieter, steadier, clearer, as if a subtle shift has taken place beneath the surface. Where confusion once lived, now there is awareness. Where reaction once ruled, now there is space. And in that space, there is choice. Friends, this is what transformation feels like. Not a sudden explosion of change, but a gentle awakening. A deep inner knowing that you are no longer the same person who began this journey. Because now you see differently, you feel differently, you respond differently, and that changes everything. Because as you reflect on everything you have absorbed, everything you have experienced through this journey of karma, cause and effect, responsibility, mindfulness, and growth, one truth stands out clearly. Your life is not random, it is responsive. Every thought you nurture, every action you take, every emotion you hold, creates a ripple, a vibration that shapes your reality. And over time, those ripples become patterns, those patterns become experiences, and those experiences become your life. And yet, within all of this, you are not powerless. You are the source. You are the creator. You are the one who can observe, understand, and transform. Friends, take a moment and truly connect with that idea, not just as a concept, but as a lived truth. Because when you begin to live with that awareness, you stop drifting through life unconsciously, and you begin to move with intention, with alignment, with purpose. You begin to see the interconnectedness of everything. How your inner world reflects outward, how your beliefs influence your behavior, how your behavior shapes your outcomes. And slowly, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you begin asking, what am I creating, and how can I align it with who I truly want to become? And that question becomes your compass. Friends, you have explored the depth of patterns. You have seen how repetition is not punishment but guidance. You have felt the power of change, the strength of patience, the beauty of significance, and the possibility of transformation. And now, all of these pieces come together into one simple yet profound realization. You are always becoming. Every moment, every choice, every thought is shaping the person you are stepping into. And that means every moment matters. Not in a way that creates pressure, but in a way that creates awareness. Because you do not need to change everything at once. You do not need to become perfect. You do not need to have all the answers. You simply need to stay present, stay conscious, stay aligned. Friends, this is where intentional living truly begins. Not as a goal, but as a practice. A daily commitment to awareness. A continuous process of reflection. A gentle yet powerful act of self-correction. Because life will continue to present you with situations, challenges, opportunities, and in each of them, you will have a choice. To react from old patterns or to respond from new awareness. To fall back into unconscious habits or to rise into conscious creation. And each time you choose awareness, you strengthen it. Each time you act with alignment, you deepen it. Each time you reflect honestly, you refine it. And slowly, you become someone who lives intentionally, someone who moves with clarity, someone who creates with purpose. Friends, there is something incredibly empowering about knowing that you can change your direction at any moment. That no matter where you have been, no matter what you have experienced, no matter what patterns you have carried, you are never stuck. Because growth is always available. Awareness is always accessible. And change is always possible. And as you continue forward, you begin to trust yourself more. You begin to trust your journey. You begin to trust the process of life itself. Not because everything is easy, but because you understand it. You understand that challenges are lessons. You understand that delays are preparation. You understand that patterns are guidance. And this understanding brings peace. A deep, grounded, unshakable peace. Friends, this is the essence of true self-improvement. Not forcing yourself to be someone else, but aligning with who you truly are. Not chasing perfection, but embracing growth. Not controlling everything, but responding consciously. And in that space, you begin to feel balance. Balance between effort and surrender. Balance between action and reflection. Balance between your internal world and your external reality. And that balance creates harmony. A life that feels aligned, meaningful, and fulfilling. Friends, as you carry this awareness into your daily life, remember that you are always influencing your path. Through your thoughts, through your choices, through your presence. So choose consciously, think intentionally, act with purpose, and reflect with honesty. Because every moment you do, you are shaping a life that reflects your highest self. And now, as this journey gently settles within you, as these ideas become part of your awareness, part of your essence, part of your daily experience, there is nothing more you need to add, nothing more you need to force. Just continue. Continue growing. Continue observing. Continue aligning. And trust that with each step, you are becoming more aware, more resilient, more connected. Friends, if this journey resonated with you, if it sparked reflection, if it helped you see yourself and your life more clearly, then carry it forward, not just within yourself, but by sharing it. Share it with someone who may need this clarity. Share it with someone who feels stuck. Share it with someone who is ready to grow. And if you want to continue exploring more journeys like this, more insights, more reflections, more paths of growth and manifestation, then take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to CliffNote Chronicles so you can stay connected with these evolving conversations. Because this is not the end of your journey. It is simply a new level of awareness within it. And as you move forward, quietly, consciously, with intention and presence, you may begin to notice something beautiful. That life is no longer something you are trying to figure out. It is something you are finally beginning to understand.